Okay, so while you're getting all logged in there and whatever, here's how the week's going to go. Okay, today and tomorrow we'll be working on the research project for this unit on plants, okay, which I'll talk about here in just a minute and outline how it's going to work. Wednesday, we'll do our unit exam review. I'll have the package ready. Just so you're aware, we're done, okay? I'm not teaching anything else in the bio unit. We're finished, okay? So you have everything you need to study for the unit exam. My suggestion would be do a little bit each night. And by a little bit, I don't mean 2 hours. Okay, by a little bit, I mean take 15, 20, okay, review some notes, look at diagrams, things like that, all right? And then Thursday, Friday, physics, best unit in the whole course. We'll start that, okay? And then Monday, you'll have your unit exam, okay? So all this week, hopefully you'll be coming in and asking questions, getting help, etc. Really good idea would be look over some of the bio stuff over the next couple of days so that when we have our unit exam review period on Wednesday, you have questions to ask. Okay, and you can get your questions answered, things clarified, okay, stuff like that. All right, so that's what's coming up. Okay, so what we're working on there, and you can see it's already in Google Classroom, is a research project on a plant of your choice. Essentially what we want to do with this project is look at how a plant that maybe you have some interest in exhibits the structures and adaptations and things like that that we've gone over in this course about plants. Okay, the things that plants do. Okay, how does your particular choice of plant adapt to those conditions? How does it conserve water, transport water? Okay, is there anything unique that it does? Okay, stuff like that. So it's basically applying what we've learned about plants to a plant of your choice. Okay, and looking at how it does that. All right, so we want to examine growth patterns and adaptations, okay, of plant of your choice. It should include a description of the plant's native environment. Okay, so certainly that's something that we would want to describe because that's going to tell us the conditions it has to adapt to. Okay, and I would say that since you've got that document there, I would have it open and you might want to start your planning right now. Make little notes to yourself while I'm going over this that could be included as part of your planning. Okay, so plant's native environment, conditions it has to deal with, okay, and then we want an extremely detailed description of how your plant grows, adapts, and deals with those conditions. Okay, so that could mean like a description of its life cycle. Does it take a really long time for it to grow? Is it a short-lived plant? Okay, does it have several defined stages in its growth? Okay, things like that. So, its environment dictates how essentially it's going to grow. Okay, does it have any tropisms? Okay, besides, obviously we know phototropism and geotropism are a pretty big deal for all plants. You can describe how your plant deals with those. If it's something that starts out small and shaded, okay, obviously geotropism would be a big deal for it early on when it doesn't really know where the light is, okay, things like that. If it's something that grows out in the middle of the desert, it may actually exhibit negative phototropism. It may try and find shady spots or stay low to the ground or things like that. Okay. How does it distribute its roots, leaves, stem? So you could talk about, does it have a tap root or a fibrous root? Okay. Does it have thick leaves, thin leaves? Are the leaves like coarse or hard versus kind of fleshy? Okay. Things like that. Why are they like that? How is that an adaptation to their environment? And how does it compete with other plants? That's usually something that you can find that's unique to your plant. Plants have to compete with each other, and other than the obvious of, well, if they grow taller, they shade out their competition or things like that, some plants actually actively try to kill other plants. All right, they actively do things that will make it difficult for other plants to grow. You may have noticed that underneath a spruce tree where all the needles fall, almost nothing grows underneath there. Ever notice that? Okay, underneath spruce trees where all their needles fall, almost nothing will grow. Even grass struggles to grow underneath the spruce tree. Okay, there's a couple of reasons. First off, it's shady under there. Okay, the tree obviously blocks a lot of the light. Its root system is there, so it sucks up a lot of the water. But the needles are actually acidic, and as they start to break down, they poison the soil. Okay, the tree can tolerate it because it produces it, but other plants can't, and so it's a way to keep other plants from growing in your house. Okay, if you're that tree, all right, and taking your resources. So things like that. There are some plants that actively to defeat the other plants in their area. Okay, does it have any special adaptations that prevent it from being eaten, damaged, or just plain survive in its environment? Okay, like thorns on a cactus is an adaptation against being eaten, right? Things like that. Okay, so those are things you'd probably want to consider talking about in here. Okay, so in your project, you need to report on the structure of your plant. Is it a flowering plant? Is it a conifer? What does conifer mean? Yes, usually needles makes cones, okay? The reproductive organs of flowering plants are flowers and fruit. The reproductive organs of conifer are cones. They're actually male and female cones on a tree. Yes, I would pick a specific species here, okay? Don't do a group of organisms. It's better to do a particular species of plant. Okay, is it a moss, etc. Okay, things like that. You should probably also discuss whether it is an annual or a perennial. Okay, what do those two terms mean? Sure. Other way. Yeah, annuals live for 1 year. Perennials perennially come back. They grow every year. Okay, so perennial things are things that'll grow back each year. All right. So things like that. Okay, what are its specific needs in terms of water, soil, nutrients, etc.? Okay, so that's something you would hopefully cover in the description of the environment, but it's something that definitely needs to be covered. What are its needs? Describe the conditions your plant must be able to survive. So again, that goes back to the native environment stuff and how does it do that? Use your knowledge of plant structure, growth, and development to illustrate how your plant species is unique and how it is adaptive. When you're talking about this, you should be talking about the things we talked about in class: leaf structure, okay, phloem and xylem, spongy layer, palisade layer, cuticle, stuff like that. Okay, how is that in your plant? What does that look like? Okay, especially if you're talking about like a needle-leafed plant, like a conifer or pine or something like that. Okay, their leaf structure is a little different. Okay, be good to talk about how that's adaptive. So make sure you're using terms that we've gone over in class. Okay, in terms of growth, development, and life cycle, be specific. How's the plant seeded? Okay, is it something that's got is it like an avocado and it's got a big old pit, okay, that decomposes and it grows from that? Or is it like dandelions where it's just the little tiny spores that are carried on the wind? Okay, does it have to go through the digestive tract of an animal before it will germinate? Okay, things like that. So in terms of seeding. How does it initially develop? Okay, you'll probably find this term in there, but I'm not really concerned about that. Cotyledon. Things can be a monocot or a dicot. That's when they first come out of the seed, kind of how they look. I'm not too worried about whether you cover that or not, but you'll probably see that term, cotyledon, come up. What conditions may be necessary for this to occur? Like, for example, we talked about how some pine trees, there has to be a fire for the cones to open, okay, things like that. Again, those are natural adaptations of your plant that you'll want to talk about. Okay, describe how it grows as a sapling or sprout. So how long is it a sapling or sprout? Is that several years, or is it 2 weeks? Okay, things like that. At what age would it be considered mature? Describe whether your plant's annual, perennial, evergreen, deciduous. Okay, if it's deciduous, what does it do? Yeah, it loses its leaves, okay? If it's evergreen, don't confuse evergreen with pine tree. Pine trees are a kind of evergreen, but plants in the rainforest are also evergreen, okay? They just don't lose their leaves, but they're not pine trees. All right. How does that affect its growth and development? Okay, if it's if it's something that lives in an environment where there's a long drought or a long winter, how does your plant go dormant? What does it do? Okay, things like that. How does it deal with those cold conditions? Okay, and then again, environmental influences. Describe how the plant's environment can affect its tissues. Are there parasitic organisms? Is the plant itself parasitic? There are a couple. Okay. Are there parasitic organisms that attempt to infect that species? So if you're talking about pine trees, pine beetle, okay, would be an infestation that's a problem. Termites are a big problem for plants that live in like the savanna of Africa and things like that, like the eucalyptus tree. Is fire, flooding, drought, freezing a concern, and how does your plant adapt to that? Okay, so those are the kind of things that you'll need to talk about in there. right? So this is just a strict report. There's no opinion. There's no societal. What's the societal effect of my plant? It's green and pretty and makes oxygen. Okay, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, there's no societal part for this one. Visual aids. I want to see pictures of your plant. Okay, if you only have one picture of the plant in your whole paper, I'll get bored. And you don't want me to get bored. I want to be entertained when I read your paper, so lots of pictures, please. Okay. If you can get graphs and charts of growth studies, I've had a few people who actually found like stop motion photography YouTube videos of their plant growing. Like someone had a camera set up and every day they took a picture of it, and they did that over the course of like a year because, I don't know, they had nothing better to do, but they had this time-lapse photography of the growth of this plant. I mean, you find something like that, that's kind of interesting. Okay, and you'll help you when you're talking about the growth and life cycle of it because you'll see it happen. So must contain pictures or diagrams, okay? And remember that you need to cite those, okay? Those are a reference. Every time you take pictures, you have to cite it just like you would if you were taking information, okay? So down to citing references, okay? A few of us lost marks on this the last time. Remember that it needs to look like this, okay? Name of the author / photographer, okay? Date you accessed, or date it was posted, sorry, okay? October, well, obviously not 95, it's November 2nd, 2015. Okay, Vive le Quebec, Vive le Canada. Okay, it's the same one I used on the Toxin Project, guys. The Daily News is the name of the website. Okay, and then so this is the name of the article, name of the website, and then we've got the URL and the day we accessed it. Okay, I had a few people, all they gave me was 5 URLs. Okay, if you do that, you're going to get 1 out of 5 on your references. Okay, so make sure that you have as much of that information as you can find. I know sometimes it's hard to find the author's name, okay, or the photographer's name. That happens sometimes. Okay, although if you search for pictures of a plant on Google Images, lots of times it's actually a photographer's website, and the photographer's name will be a lot easier to find. Okay, there are actually some people out there who make their living taking pictures of plants. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to find some of those as well. Okay, any questions on that? If it's a crop plant, yes, you could certainly, or if something that we use for food, you could talk about that, or if we use it for like skin treatments, like aloe vera, things like that. Sure, absolutely. Yep. All right. So same as before, guys. The same marking rubric is going to apply. 5 marks for initiating and planning, 5 marks for analysis and interpretation, 5 marks for communication, 5 for your research and investigation, and 5 for the overall impression of the paper. Okay, so remember that initiating and planning, I'm going to want to see, okay, timeline, and then outline or web, whichever one you're going to do. Okay, for the planning, that's kind of the minimum. All right, analysis and interpretation, how good is the stuff you tell me about the plant? Did you cover everything? Okay, communication. In the Toxin Project, there was a lot of point form kind of writing. Okay, try and make your project flow as opposed to be this point, this point, this point, like you're answering my questions. I don't want to see you answering. I want you to answer my questions, but not by just having a point for each one. Okay, make it flow when you're talking about it. And then obviously we've already talked about research, and then overall, your pictures apply. It's not one long sentence. Okay, things like that. Okay, questions on any of that? Okay, from the due date for this is 2 weeks from today, so I made it, what was it, November 19th? Okay. Yeah, sorry, that's not 14, 16. Yeah, 16 days.